Also came across a couple who were on their way to Queensland to meet Jesus. Yep, you heard me right, with the self-professing Jesus of Nazareth. That's actually from... Over the years, I've talked to people of all sorts of religious faiths. And I'll tell you something, you'll tend to notice that you'll come across a lot of weird biblical teachings. Let me just give you a few examples of that. I met a guy who believes that the two people who were crucified together with Jesus were Judas Iscariot and Simon Peter. If that wasn't enough to raise red flags, he also had a woman with him that was following the things that he was teaching, to the point where she wasn't permitted to speak to any other males that were present unless she was given permission to do so. Funny thing was, that wasn't even his wife. Even also taking certain scriptures out of context, like Matthew chapter 5 verse 3 saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So what did he do? He took a literal to the scripture and gave up his job, gave up his house, gave up everything to live on the streets. Even so much to cause the woman to do the same thing. Don't think that's what the scriptures meant. Also came across a couple who were on their way to Queensland to meet Jesus. Yep, you heard me right, with the self-professing Jesus of Nazareth. That's actually from Queensland, Australia. And he's divorced with 2 children and married to none other than Mary Magdalene.
What?
Also meeting with these groups that have such an obsession about being the chosen people of God. To be more specific, the Hebrew Israelites, who stake claim to being the real Jews of the Bible. But also coming across people who say that the Polynesians are the real Jews and that the other guys are fake. And that the 12 tribes of Israel that the Bible talks about is actually, and I quote, our Polynesian brothers. So why am I sharing this? We're seeing that people are finding themselves locked into these type groups so easily, and I found that there's usually a persuasive character of some sort that expounds and delivers knowledge in such an influential way and gives persuasive language that draws people in. And what we see with these cults that are growing are similar traits and behavior that they possess, and it adds a sense of mysticism, and that actually surprisingly attracts a lot of people. For example, you may have heard a few of these, right? Receiving a personal revelation from an angel about the real truth of God, or some claim to be the next prophet in line to lead God's people, his selected people. Some claim that the church that they build is the only true church. Yeah, I've heard that one before. You know, even telling people that they are the chosen people from God and that others aren't. And he's probably one of the most common ones, the more popular ones, predicting the time that Jesus will return. And these are only a few of the common building blocks that these cults thrive upon. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, I cannot stress enough what it means to read and know your word for yourself. Like it says in 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15, study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Because studying the word for yourself, this is what it does for you. It increases your discernment, gives you understanding with context of the scriptures, allows for you to have a defense for your faith. Also gives you a framework to work off rather than just believing every interpretation that gets thrown your way. The Bible says that my people perish because of the lack of knowledge. And what we so often see happening is this. People just yielding themselves over to people that make a confident claim. But let me make something clear. Knowledge alone will not suffice. Why do I say that? Even the Pharisees had knowledge, but yet they lacked in understanding. Jesus was always pulling his disciples to the side privately to expound on the parables that he gave and also reveal what they meant. Let me ask you something. Do you find yourself not understanding the Bible? Do you find yourself not being able to comprehend what's in it? Sometimes it takes time to soak in, or the reason could be that you're lacking in sowing time in your private relationship with Jesus. Or maybe the reason why you can't understand these parables is because you're not a disciple at all. Be blessed.